kick things off and just situate this project a little bit with some background information. Nate's going to walk through the technical design of sorts in the middle of the presentation, and we'll provide some updates on the kind of the status of this standard and some of the available resources that you may be interested in looking at and using for your projects. So just a quick word about my organization, IMS Global Learning Consortium. We're a nonprofit, member-based organization. We have members from schools, school districts, universities, educational technology companies, nonprofit agencies, government agencies all over the world. We have chapters in Europe, an IMS Europe chapter, and an IMS Japan chapter, as well as a Korean group that gets together. And so the reach and impact is quite broad and growing. So our members get together and work on solving problems around interoperability of learning technologies. The output of their work are various standards that are free and open once they're published to the world to be adopted. So that's what we do, and my role is a technical program manager, and I support our work in the digital credentials area, which include open badges. I mentioned the comprehensive learner record standard previously, and also some work that has to do with standards regarding competencies and the frameworks that they live in. So the story of Badge Connect and Open Badges 2.1 obviously begins with Open Badges 2.0. And, you know, it's really exciting to see the growth, the incremental growth over the last 3+ years. And thanks to many people on the call today who were early designers, early pioneers in the Open Badges efforts and standards work. We really have a truly global standard that's being adopted rapidly and across numerous platforms. So the products that you see listed here on the screen are those that have gone through the testing and certification process at IMS to confirm their conformance to the Open Badges 2.0 standard. Our role is to support, consult, advise as they implement the standard, and then also put their product through the testing process and award certification when their products pass muster. So we're up to 21 products right now. The total number that have been certified over the last few years is larger than that. Some choose not to renew a certification. Others need to update their system or have made product choices where products are retired, acquisitions have happened, you know, so there is some fluidity to this group, but today there are 21, and the 3 latest certified products in the last couple of months are over here, Moodle, Bester, and APHIS. I know the Open Badges community is certainly familiar with Bester and Moodle. APHIS is a educational platform that has some badging functionality now. But this is the community of certified products, and that link will take you to more details about this list. So 2.1, that's affectionately called the Badge Connect API, builds off of Open Badges 2.0. Open Badges 2.0, as many of you know, is all about how the badge is structured, the metadata that goes into the Open Badge. But 2.1 adds a REST-based API to enable the improved exchange of Open Badge data between systems. So what this does is it improves the current state for badge recipients. If a badge recipient wants to use a certain tool for hosting their badges, they currently have to go into other platforms where their badges exist or have been awarded to them. They need to download those badges and import them into the host of their choice, whether it's a backpack tool or a portfolio tool or so on. And so this Badge Connect API allows the learner to create an authorized, a secure and authorized connection between systems. So if I have a portfolio in the Campus Labs milestone system, and I'm getting badges from Badgr and Credly based on my achievements, I can set up an authorized connection and say that any of my badges that are coming from Badgr and Credly should end up in the milestone portfolio. And Nate's going to kind of go into a deeper description of how that all works in just a moment. So for those of you that were connected to the Open Badges community years ago, you are familiar with the concept of a federated backpack system. The Mozilla backpack was apparently never designed to be the one and only backpack in the ecosystem. It turned out to be that way for a period of time, and when Mozilla had to retire it and move on, of course, you know about the arrangements for Badgr backpack to support those users and their badges. Well, this really truly creates an interoperable federated backpack environment with the learner or the badge recipient in the center and in control of the movement of their badges. So for the tech providers, this reduces the need to develop proprietary solutions for integrations with every platform that's out there. If everyone develops around the Badge Connect API or Open Badges 2.1, it should reduce costs and maintenance over time. Okay, Nate, I'll hand the the microphone over to you. And would you like me to move the slides, or would you like to share your screen?
Oh, I can direct you through the next button, I think. Sounds
right.
Good. Okay, so thanks. That was a great overview. Just for a moment, do we want to stop and see if anyone has any questions, just sort of on the purpose of Badge Connect, why it exists, what Jeff just went through? I don't see any questions yet so far in the Etherpad, so I'll proceed, but go ahead and add your questions down in the Q&A section below the presentation notes on the Etherpad as you have them, and then we'll make sure to go through them here when we're done. So I'm going to provide a little bit of a technical overview of Badge Connect and how the process works. For the different applications that are involved, which are web services, you know, one of them might be Badgr, another one might be Credly, another one might be CanCred or the Open Badge Passport. There are three roles or three actors who are involved in this process. One, of course, and this is terminology from the OAuth family of specifications that we are using as part of the underlying technical approach here. So you may be familiar with the terms resource owner, relying party, and then what we're calling host is an Open Badges term, but the OAuth 2 term is a resource server. So there are these three actors involved in an exchange. And as Jeff mentioned, the purposes of this exchange will be so that badge recipients can choose their home base on the web, which Open Badges host service they want to have as the place where they store their badges. And they can connect all the places they earn badges to that, and then they can connect all the places that they want to display or make use of badges to their home base, everything acting with their permission. So the resource owner is the recipient of a badge. They own those badges, and it's their data to move around as they see fit. And they're the ones who should be deciding which services can look at their badges. You know, not any other party, not like the platform provider that issued the badges shouldn't be the one deciding what the recipients do with them. It should be the recipients themselves. The relying party is, say, an issuer application. And the first example we'll go through is what happens when you want to issue a badge to a recipient who's using a Badge Connect host. So the relying party is an application that awards badges. Maybe it is an assessment platform or a learning management system, but it doesn't want to implement the full complexity of being an Open Badge host itself. And then the third actor in this story is the host platform or backpack, as we know it, that holds badges. It's a web application that's always there online and is there for the resource owner to go sign in and manage their badges. Okay, Jeff, you can go to the next slide. So what happens is the very first part of this process is that if there's an issuer, a relying party, that has never interacted with a particular host before, it needs to register and say, hello to that host and get some information exchanged between those two different services. And so to facilitate this, we have created a Badgr Connect manifest file that is a little service descriptor for what Badgr Connect service the host offers. So it says what version of Badgr Connect is supported. 2.1 is the only available one, of course, on initial launch. And it contains information about what capabilities are possible on that host. And there's 4 different API endpoints that relying parties can interact with. 3 of them are required and 1 of them is optional. So the host gets to declare which ones they support. So next slide. So the next thing is that after the relying party issuer platform registers with the host to be able to send data to the host, it actually initiates a permission request for the particular learner. And so the learner is there in the browser. They are redirected over to the host platform where the relying party has initiated an OAuth to authorization code grant for the user to see what permissions are being asked for by the relying party. In this case, it'll be the permission, hey, could I view your profile on your backpack and have the permission to push badges to you? But I'm not asking for the permissions to read what other badges are in your backpack at this point. And the user would go to their host, they'd see this request, and they'd see information about the issuer platform that is making the request, as well as the list of permissions that are being requested to access their account. If they say yes, then they are redirected back to that issuer platform, and then the issuer platform has the permission to act on their behalf to send badges to their host. So you can go to the next slide. So then the actual API calls that are the bread and butter of this specification occur. The relying party might get the profile for the user from the host and say, okay, good, the right email addresses are registered with the host on this profile. So I will go ahead and push a badge to this user. And so then it would push 1 or more badges to the user's backpack collections. And then when the user signs back into their host the next time, they will see the badges there that the issuer has pushed. The important thing to know, and that's a real advantage for this procedure over the previous implementations, say with the Mozilla Backpack, are that the next time the issuer awards the recipient a badge, the recipient doesn't have to go into their browser and interact with that particular new badge in order to get it into their backpack. At that point, their issuer already has the permission to push to that user's host. And so they can, the issuer can just push it there directly, and then they can inform the user maybe by email, congratulations, you earned your 2nd badge from us. We've put it in your Open Badges host for you. You don't need to take any further action, and it will be there for you to enjoy whenever you go to get it. So you can go to the next slide. Great. So there's 3 roles in Open Badges 2.0, and these are reflected here in Open Badges 2.1 as well. Those roles, we talked about 2 of them so far: the issuer of badges, the host for recipients to store and manage their badges. And then there's an idea called a displayer, which is an application that can take badges on behalf of a recipient, show them to others, make some kind of value out of them. A displayer has, in some ways, seems to be limiting language about what you might do, that the only purpose for it would be to show off a badge. But really, a displayer is shorthand for any service that reads badges from a user's backpack and does something cool with them. Maybe that's as simple as showing them. Maybe it's as simple as putting them on a map. But this capability can expand limitlessly as we build cool applications that make use of badges and do interesting machine readable things with them. One example, of course, is like the pathways system we've built into Badgr, where if you grant our system the ability to take a look at your badges, we can tell you, oh, hey, your badges fall on these pathways. you could talk to these issuers and get enrolled in these educational programs. You might look at these next step badges to go earn. So we really try and take those badges you've got in your backpack and turn them back into some kind of extra information or intelligence or understanding for you about what they mean for you. So the three roles here: issuers award open badges to recipients, hosts allow those recipients to store and manage them, and then displayers do all this stuff where you can show it off, you can do something cool with it. So go to the next slide.
Yeah, and I would just add most displayers as well support the ability to verify that badge.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So each of these roles has IMS certification requirements associated with it. And for displayers, one of those certification requirements is that when you're showing an open badge, we want to make sure viewers know that this is not just some ordinary digital sticker. This has superpowers. It can be verified back with its original issuer. And so displayers are required to implement verification and re-verification protocols so that recipients or the viewers of these badges, the consumers, have good assurance that this badge is authentic. And so we'll grow the ecosystem and we'll maintain that type of trust in our credentials.
Oh.
Cool. So here's a couple capabilities, a couple slides of capabilities that you can do now with Badge Connect, or soon you'll be able to do as soon as this percolates throughout the ecosystem. And we'll talk a little bit about the deployment landscape and timeline coming up here at the end. So these use cases are what we're talking about, that a recipient of an assertion wants to import a bunch of badges that they've previously earned prior to the advent of Badge Connect into their host system. And so they make a connection between that issuer system as relying party and the host. The issuer pushes all those badges to the user and they've got them. A new one is a user wants to authorize an issuer to push newly awarded assertions to their chosen host when those new assertions get issued. And that's what the example that we just worked through. The third one, a user wants to connect their assertions to a displayer, like for example would be a recruiting platform. Please show me, displayer, some jobs that are related to the badges and the skills that, that I have been recognized for. Next. And another one is enabling users to have control of their badges in terms of which host platform they use. There are multiple host platforms in this ecosystem, and we want to make sure that this ecosystem is open to user control. We're not locking them into any particular platform. So Badge Connect enables users to move their badges from one host to another host if both those hosts support Badge Connect in the appropriate roles. So that's portability of credentials in between, host to host. The second one on this slide, that if a, let's see, this is one I wrote a month ago, and it's written in fairly technical language. So the relying party wants to be able to get profile information about the user who is associated with the badges in the backpack. And so in Badgr, for instance, from day one, we supported multiple different email addresses being associated with your backpack. And now we support URLs as well. It's like your Twitter profile URL can be one of the identifiers to which you're awarded badges on Badgr. When a displayer or a relying party of any sort wants to match up the badges that you've earned, which have hashed identifiers in them, with the actual email address or URL that you've been awarded that badge at, especially to make the decisions of does it trust you to be associated with that identifier, it will need to get plain text profile information from you. And so with permission, relying party displayers can ask, and issuers can ask hosts for, can ask the user for permission for the host to send them profile information so that that relying party can see all of the email addresses and URLs that it thinks are on the user's profile. And then the last use case is one that we haven't talked about yet, which is that if an issuer platform wishes to register a new recipient identifier to suggest that a new email address might be a good fit on a recipient profile, it can do so. And then that host system can take that request how it wants. It can send a verification email, say, to verify a new email address, so that host system would be able to then receive badges to a new trusted identifier for the user. So that's a bunch of different things that are possible with Badgr Connect. It's of course not limited to that. The capabilities of a displayer platform that you can imagine are limited only by your imagination about what you think badges might be good for. Go to the next one. So let's talk a little bit. Here's an example. Here's what some screens that do this flow are going to look like in Badgr. And as far as our timeline, we have code up on GitHub in our open source software right now that implements Badgr Connect. So you can take that, take a look at the Badgr Connect branch on our GitHub repository, but this will also be available in our integration testing environment, test.badgr.com, in the coming weeks. If you want to get notifications related to the opportunities as a developer to test and try out Badgr Connect with our service, you can send an email to our support hotline or contact me. So we plan to release the Badgr Connect features to our SaaS platforms in 4 data centers around the world, and all of our enterprise customers during Q2. And we'll do that in concert with the development and rollout of IMS's certification program. Talk about that more in a moment. Badgr is going to support the host role at first, so issuers can push badges to Badgr, and displayers can, with user permission, pull badges from Badgr backpacks to show in their platforms. And then later on, we will support the relying party issuer and displayer roles for various different purposes that make sense within our application. So like when you earn a badge from an issuer who's using Badgr, you'll be able to push that, accept that into your own open badge host as well. And that'll be a little bit later in Q3 sometime. I'll try and make it done as soon as possible. So Badgr's coming up. You go to the next slide and we'll show a little bit about what that's going to look like. So I talked to you a little bit about the permission grant screen. This is an early mock-up of what that might look like if the Milestone system wanted, which is another host, wanted to pull badges from Badgr Backpack to sync those collections into Milestone. The user happens to be using both hosts. What would happen is you start the process in Milestone and you identify, hey, I want to connect another Open Badges backpack host to my account here. And then you enter the badgr.com domain name. You get sent over to badgr.com, authenticate with your credentials on our system, and then you're shown this permission grant screen where Badgr tells you, hey, there's this other app out here, Milestone, and they'd like to do these various things with you. One of the other features of Badgr Connect that's not shown on this early mockup is that Badgr Connect surfaces the service domain that you're of the relying party and the privacy policy and terms of service links related with that service, so you can really inspect and make sure that a service that you are authorizing to access your resources is one that you trust. So if you go to the next screen, if you authorize, then you would be able to go to, in Badgr, we have it in our app integrations section where you can see what services are connected to your Badgr account. So that's up in that top right menu. And so if you click app integrations and go to the next slide, you could see that Milestone service that you granted permission to access your Badgr account. And then you could revoke that permission at any time. So if you, I don't have a screenshot for this one, but if you click into that Milestone card, then you'd see the exact set of permissions that you you granted, and we can we'll be improving that capability as this rolls out through the ecosystem in order to give users even more and more control over which credentials are eligible for being pulled to a particular displayer, and various more granular control and logging to see what types of access have been done. The whole idea is to give badge recipients maximal control over. Sounds like my Bluetooth. I'm gonna switch to built-in microphone. Can you still hear me?
Yep, sound good, Nate.
All right, great, cool. So you can go to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about current status and rollout plans. Jeff, you want to take this one?
Yeah, thanks, Nate. Great overview. So where do we stand with the OB 2.1 standard? Again, that is OB 2.1 is the Badgr Connect API. It is publicly available. You can go to this URL on the IMS website and find all the documentation available. We're considering this an early adopter stage right now because the standard is in what IMS calls the candidate final phase or status. It's the next to last stage before it's released as final. So the work group believes it's extremely stable right now. The early adopters are building it into their products as we speak. But because it's candidate final, it is open to updates based on the findings of those early adopters. We don't expect significant changes at all, just be aware of that. So what's happening in terms of the timeline over the next few months? As Nate mentioned, IMS works to build the testing system for certifying products for their conformance to the standard. Our staff is doing that right now, and that will be available in April. So those early adopters will run their systems against the testing system and get feedback. And one of our criteria for moving a standard to final is that at least 2 products pass the conformance testing process that's been established by the work group. So it's a very pragmatic approach. It means that the standards that are released have actually been implemented and tested and vetted. So there's a high degree of confidence in those standards. We expect that to happen in the late spring here. I would expect, just based on what I'm hearing from the early adopters, would be maybe in the April-May timeframe for those first certifications. Once we get a minimum of 2 successful certified systems, then we move the standard forward to the technical advisory board at IMS for their vote, and if it passes their vote, it is released as final. So that, I think, would take, unless there's some really unexpected events that happen, I would expect that process to be wrapped up sometime in the summer, maybe late summer, maybe August, something like that. So we've talked about early adopters, and I just wanted to highlight the significant contributions that these organizations are making to the Badgr Connect API. All of the companies on the screen have publicly indicated their intent to adopt the standard this year, and a few of them are working hard right now to implement the specification into their product. There have been some early tests between platforms, so I'm really eager to see this come alive in the next few months. Again, here's the URL for the IMS page that contains all of the resources that you would need to dig deeper into OB 2.1. You'll find the actual specification docs. As I mentioned, they're publicly available. There's a forum, so if you're not an IMS member, you can actually post your questions and comments and feedback to this forum. The work group will receive those comments and questions and provide responses. So it's not a terribly active forum right now, but that's the pathway into communication to the people that are working on the standard itself. And you'll also find any latest news updates regarding our work on open badges here on this page. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our prepared comments and slides. Are there questions or comments that you'd like to raise?
Great, yeah, there seem to be some questions down here. Federated backpack, or actually, is that Serge? Did you put those? Maybe you can just follow up, Serge, because you asked all the questions.
Oh, yes, but you can read the questions. So basically, do all the participants in the federation need to be certified?
No.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, there's not a certification requirement. You would need to be certainly supporting 2.0 fully to participate, but there's not, I'm trying to think if there's any reason that the lack of a certification would prevent you from participating in this ecosystem, adopting the software.
Technically, no, there is not a reason that the systems involved can't tell certification status as part of this. All they can tell is interoperability capabilities. And so whether there is a manifest file that is properly implemented, certainly there are benefits to certification, because then you'd be are able to go through the testing procedure, and we get a higher guarantee of likely compatibility with all the different capabilities of Badgr Connect 2.1, and then the system gets published onto the directory that IMS hosts. But technically, it is possible to develop a system in either the relying party role or the host role that hasn't gone through that process, or to put up a service, like Badgr is open source, and Badgr will be certified for 2.1. Someone could install the Badgr system somewhere else outside of our software as a service clusters, and they would still be able to offer the host capability.
Yeah, just another word expanding on that. I've noticed when products go through the certification process, it sometimes identifies bugs that they didn't realize existed in their product. There's a prominent product in the market that for a long time purported to support open badges, and it turned out that they were supporting the earliest version, 0.5, which was fine. The world has just moved on quickly beyond that early version, and so the badges that were being issued were not valid, and ultimately are not going to be interoperable in this ecosystem. So just going through some of that testing process identified some bugs that were previously unknown. Okay.
And then there's the one about how could we use Badgr Connect? Maybe this is a question for Nate. How could we use Badgr Connect to display on a single map the open recognition ambassador that we're using? We're just rolling out now, and we're just experimenting with mapping our open recognition ambassador badges to OpenStreetMap. But does that mean OSM becomes a displayer?
It probably wouldn't be necessarily the OpenStreetMap application itself, although OpenStreetMap has developer interfaces, which we have used here in the open recognition community, and to put an OpenStreetMap representation onto our own services and put various different markers onto it. And so that API is really easy to use as a developer. And so Badgr Connect helps that. How I would do it if to implement Badgr Connect would be to enable a login button where anyone signs in with their Open Badges host using Badgr Connect. In this case, the Open Recognition Ambassador site would be a displayer, and it would pull the badges from the hosts that users granted it permission to access. And then for each of those users, they could see whether, oh yes, okay, you do have one of the eligible badges to be placed onto our map, and then it could allow the user to input their location if it wasn't available from their profile in the host, and then their marker could appear on the map. So that would be exactly how a displayer like the Open Recognition Alliance map service could use Badgr Connect in order to make it so that any eligible badge in any compatible Open Badges backpack host could be displayed on a map.
Okay, well, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think it is also connected. Yeah, it is connected to the next question because there is a possibility, of course, to say that each individual will share the badges one by one person per person. But would it be possible to have some kind of a global agreement? So let's say, for example, that we have an application that would be the map for the ambassadors, and there would be an agreement with Badgr and with Open Badge Passport, a global agreement to say all the badges that are public could be pulled and displayed on the map. Is it something that makes sense?
There are some things that are in the scope of the current 2.1 release, and some parts of that are something we could definitely implement on top of the 2.1 spec without any change to that spec. So for example, it is definitely a recommended practice in 2.1 for a host to be able to give users granular control over which badges are eligible to be pulled from an account. One thing that, and so Backpack's hosts are definitely encouraged to be able to implement ideas like this collection of badges that I've marked public are the ones that can come over across this authorized connection, or to enable, oh, this other collection here of purpose-specific badges should go to a displayer that is specific to my involvement in a particular community or subject area. So users should be able to have control over which badges are authorized. The idea of being able to have displayers maybe like search hosts for profiles that have public badges that are, like listed in a directory or something like that. That's not something that is in scope for Badge Connect, which is all about asking permission of the badge holder to do things. But certainly platforms are able to implement with the permissions of their users other public capabilities on top and above Open Badges 2.1.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any live questions from the audience? Okay.
Yes, just a question about around endorsements. How is it handled with the API endorsements? If I have a badge that is endorsed in Open Badge Passport, how are these endorsements handled when I move my badges to another service?
I believe in, there may be some slight variances between services, and I think it is totally possible to transmit endorsements over this connection because there is an endorsement property in the assertion, and the representation of that assertion made by the host to a displayer or made by the issuer to a host can include endorsements, and it will be, the receiving party of that information, whether it's the host or the displayer, can verify that information and then present it along with the badge. I expect that not every single endorsement use case is going to be working perfectly from day one, but I think as soon as we have the base level connection where we can transmit basic assertion data, then the developers in this community who are interested in advancing endorsement can make sure that endorsements are well supported for various different use cases.
Yes, I'm talking about the
technical details, but
badge class.
Sorry, go ahead.
The endorsement of the badge class.
Yeah, and that would be the same thing. Endorsement of badge class is verified as part of verification of the badge if it's included by reference in the badge class definition. So we can make sure that it works. I don't think everything will be working perfectly on day one. The badges will flow. The endorsements may not come over depending on how they are referenced by the issuer of the badges and by the conveyors of the information, but we can make sure to build better recommended practices and start exploring those use cases once we have the baseline technology ecosystem established.
I had a question. This is Karen.
Sure.
What happens like if a badge is issued to a learner and then they end up using Badge Connect to send the badge somewhere else, and then the issuer realizes that the badge was issued in error and they want to revoke the badge?
Sure, yeah, Open Badges support revocation, and that revocation should be checked at every transmission of the badge across the ecosystem. And as well as Jeff mentioned earlier, re-verification is part of the displayer experience. So wherever that badge is displayed, if it's being displayed in a standards conformant system, that means that there will be the capability for the consumer there to check the current validity of the badge. So revocation information would be checkable wherever the badge goes.
So can you, I guess I'm not completely clear on where the assertion hosting sits. Does it always stay with the original issuer?
Yes, open badges have verification protocols, and that's either a hosted or signed verification protocol. And that verification goes through the original issuer. And so that original issuer is the one who controls its revocation status. So when it's verified, that revocation status by the issuer is checked. Just because a reference to the badge or a copy of the badge has been moved into a host on a remote system doesn't remove the ability for the issuer to be the source of truth about the current meaning of that badge.
Yeah, because it seems like there's some issue with that over time, just because like sometimes like an organization will go out of business or they don't want to pay for the hosting anymore, and you can't force an issuing organization, like even universities go, you know, colleges shut down. And that like if an issuer, if somebody who's received a badge still wants to have some sort of authentication for like a college degree they received, it would be nice if, like I understand why it's tricky, but it would be nice if there was some way that the standard, like the way of doing things supported that, rather than assuming that issuers will never stop hosting the assertions.
Yeah, that's a good point. On one hand, that possibility is a reason why colleges or other issuer organizations should be, you know, careful to choose a badge issuing platform that's going to likely have longevity, that's committing to hosting for a long time. At another level, I think there is work in the specification that we can do in order to enable appropriate verification use cases that are decentralized and don't rely as much on the hosting of a particular web URL to live forever, because we know that URLs are supposed to be forever, and you know, in the platonic ideal sense. In reality, sometimes services shut down, and we need to make sure our ecosystem takes account of that real facet of the world.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Yes, I think it is not a real problem, because what is the value of a badge 3 or 4 years later when you can verify it? I think what is important is what you can attach to the life of this badge. And if you can verify it, what you could get is social validation by peers, by clients, by peer students that were also at the college or university. So instead of focusing on just the verification of the badge by the institution, I think social validation is a valid option.
For some things, you actually need proper certification, and more certification is moving over to micro-credentials. And so, for example, if you can't go to your job, if you're an electrician working in construction and you have a micro-credential that's associated with an open badge, and you show up at the job site and you can't access it or show that you're actually, your credentials are up to date, then you're in a serious problem. So I think what you're saying is true for a lot of cases, but there are a lot of circumstances where micro-credentials are being used for essential purposes.
And if it's a sentimental badge and that I want to keep, Serge?
I'll send you one. I'll send you a sentimental badge.
Okay, so I think it's time. We're past the hour. I'm mindful of people's time. Unless there are any other sort of pressing questions, thank you very much for doing this, both Jeff and Nate. This is great. It's wonderful to see it come on the way it has. Yeah. Félicitations. And so we'll follow up and hopefully touch base on this a little later in the year and brag about how many people are actually using Badge Connect and how we're going to evolve it on from there, and whatever Open Badges 2.2 will be.
Ooh. Now you sound like my boss.
Do start submitting those Open Badges 2.2 use cases, because scoping is happening.
For life.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Thanks everyone.
Everyone, take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.